So you, what, every other couple of days you're having ayahuasca?
Yeah, like
Wow.
normally like 3 times a week. Yeah, three
Three
times.
times a week.
Yeah.
Whoa. Ready?
I mean, it doesn't matter, does it? Because like whatever was, yeah,
Yeah, you're right, man. It really doesn't matter. All we're doing is just trying our best just to share something which has really profoundly changed your life, you
yeah.
know, which is recognizing who you truly are and recognizing the bliss and the synchronicity in the universe,
Hmm.
you know. So that being said, I think that's a beautiful way to start this. Everyone watching this in the future on YouTube or on any social media platform, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this time to be with me and Priya. Um, I've known Shiva Priya. I've known you now for about 3 years, and it's been honestly, hand on my heart, the most glorious, incredible thing to witness from the outside. You, what I call Hoshaku Kempon, which is Japanese for cast off the transient and reveal the true. It's what I've got tattooed on my neck. You've truly cast off the transient version, Lisa Harris, and revealed who you truly are. Shiva Priya is obviously a name that represents that, and we'll talk about that a lot later. It's the 30th of May, 2023. I'm in Manchester. Where are you right now?
In Essex.
Good old Essex. I think I'm going to call this
Yeah, back where I was born.
Big Essex. I think I'm going to call this from Essex to India because something's quite significant about Essex. You know, in the media, in pop culture, it's seen as quite a superficial place. But do you know what? Some of the
Yeah.
most wise people I've ever seen coming out of Essex, and that's the truth, and you're one of them.
Thank you.
Um, I'll just give a little backstory on how we know each other,
Hmm.
and then I'll let you kind of just share your story. Um,
Okay.
so we first kind of met in a it was just it was like a Zoom call, and it was just we stumbled across each other. There was a couple other people in it, and we were just talking about like open-hearted discussion about just what was happening in the world, the pandemic, and how we're all just coping with it, and how and whether we agree and with government guidelines and all of these things. We were just a concerned citizens gathering together, and I remember seeing your energy, and there was a light about you, and there was a vulnerability but a strength as well. And then one of the first times we met, actually, I've got, let me share the screen. I've got a photo from this time. It's the first time we met was when there was all them protests were happening. Do you remember in 2020?
Uh-huh.
And I know you're the same. We never actually went to protest. We just went to participate in the energy and to document it and to see what was actually happening, you know.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it was definitely a memory I'll never forget. But you was by my side actually, and so there's a picture that I took, well, someone took it of you. It's a film shot, and you can just see my arm floating on the side. I don't know if you can see that photo.
Uh,
Yeah, my arm is somewhere on the side there. So one thing I was doing is I was documenting the protests, and I asked if I could talk to you because you know, and you're going to get into this, but you was a midwife in the NHS, and you turned up to the protest in your blue outfit, you know, your
yeah,
work
I had
outfit.
actually resigned already at that point. So
You had
I'd already resigned and I had removed myself from the Nursing and Midwifery Council register. And the reason why I had resigned as well was because I wanted to express my voice,
yeah.
and when you are part of the nursing and midwifery, so under the your registration with the Nursing and Midwifery Council, obviously, you're kind of governed as to what you can say, you know, what you can share. And yeah, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Well,
But absolutely, yeah, I'd already resigned at that point, so it
so you
was
were you were standing there as a resigned midwife,
yeah.
you know, but it was quite a statement and a sign of being a rebel, in my opinion, standing there still in the outfit. And I remember your social media name at the time was the Sovereign Sister, and I love that,
Uh-huh.
you know. And so like this is only 8 seconds of, and all of these videos I'll make sure that they're all linked under this, but this is just 8 seconds of the start of the interview, just to give people a feeling of what it was like when we first ever met in 2020.
Yeah.
So let me find it really quickly.
Can I just quickly ask, do you trust authority now? No. No? No. Not at all? Not at all, no.
Yeah, you saw that this time.
Uh-huh.
Okay, incredible. So yeah, that's just a bit of the vibe. You can see all the police behind us. There's all the masks. There was such busyness. There was about, I think there was like 500,000 people there, I'm sure, just
Yeah.
in that section.
I think
And
it
so
was
that,
like I think it was the first one here. It was like the first protest in London in Trafalgar Square, wasn't it?
It was, man. And
It
it was
was the
like,
first one,
there was
yeah.
the David Icks, the Keisha Ramanis, there was all the dentists on the stage. There was just like a
Uh-huh.
whole load of just all different people.
Yeah.
Different organizations were gathering together, and it was just, yeah, it was just incredible to watch and witness and to stand by your side. And I guess today what we're going to talk about is a bit about your life before, and I think that would be a great way for you to start this in a
Yeah.
minute. If you could explain kind of who was Lisa Harris up until,
Uh-huh.
leaving being a midwife. And then that's kind of when we met in 2020, and then how you've gone on to cast off your transient and reveal your true, which I think the most important thing for me, and the reason, and it's important to say, actually, me and you, we did a live a couple of days ago on Instagram, and it was the first time that we've spoke, and it was without a doubt one of the most powerful conversations I've had. And there was a simplicity but a profoundness to it, because what I think you're going to be able to reveal today is, if we can simply trust that feeling within inside us and have stronger faith than we have fear, life becomes electric, synchronized. And even if you've got £2.22 in your bank account, which you're going to talk about later, everything will be given to you. You have to trust and surrender. And that's kind of the most powerful thing. But that Instagram live, in the end, my phone actually overheated because of the sun. And I knew then and there, this is the reason that's happened, is so that we could have this moment now and actually do it in a more professional, silent way. So Priya, please, if you could explain who Lisa Harris was and just kind of introduce yourself, that would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go back to when I was living in South Africa and with my first husband. So I went to South Africa in 2001, and with my first husband, who I'd actually met in Brighton. And it was, yeah, it was quite, the relationship was it felt very controlling. I didn't have any independence. Before we were living in Brighton together.
Yeah.
And, I was used to having my own money and my own income. And when I went there, because I was accompanying him on his work permit, I wasn't actually allowed to work.
Okay.
So I was very controlled as to, like, how much money I had and so forth. And he was a womanizer. I mean, when I actually first met him, the first time I met him, he actually came around to my flatmate invited him around for dinner, and my first words were, "Oh my God, what a dickhead. I would never go out with someone like him." And after a month of him kind of like pursuing me and courting me and taking me out to all these like amazing restaurants, then I ended up having a relationship with him, living together and marrying him. So first thing, I didn't listen to the alarm bells in my head. I just, even my wedding day, I knew I was making a mistake. However, go to South Africa, and we were out there for about 8 years, and I had both my children out there. And South Africa is very, it's all like private health insurance. So birth in South Africa is very medicalized. It's like 95% cesarean rate. And wow. I had to find a midwife to have birth, like to give birth naturally with my two children. And it kind of like led on to a whole load of other things, but I ended up training in reflexology. I then became a doula. And if anyone doesn't know what a doula is, but a doula is somebody who actually supports women in labor. I became very, very, what's the word? Passionate about empowering women during birth.
Yeah.
And seeing like through giving reflexology to women that, most of the time they'd be coming to me and saying to me, "Oh, like I want to have a normal delivery, but my gynae has told me that I need to have a cesarean because I have like size 3 feet and my pelvis isn't big enough." And just hearing all this absolute nonsense. And one of my clients actually trained doulas, and we ended up like exchanging. She trained me as a doula, I was giving her reflexology, and the rest is kind of history, because then I went on to like having my own practice, working alongside independent midwives and supporting women in labor, and seeing women give birth, in like on farms in the middle of nowhere with all the family present. And, you know, to me, that was kind of like how birth should be, you know, it's like, and there were no clocks ticking, you know, the women were just left to do it, and they can do it. They know how to give birth, you know, it's not a medicalized event. But like I said, in South Africa, it was like a 95% cesarean rate. And so I became something that, yeah, really, really just touched me, having had both children myself and not having any support as well. So that's kind of where I was, very kind of holistic background.
Yeah.
But the relationship with my husband at the time really, really deteriorated. And when I say deteriorated, I mean, it just became more and more controlling. And my children at that point were only like 3 and 5 years old. You know, he didn't like me going out in the middle of the night when I was getting called out to go and help women, you know, give birth and things. And it got to the point where I just felt like I had to leave. And it was like one of the most scariest, hardest things I've ever done, because my lifestyle would, most people would look at my life and think like, wow, like, you know, are you really going to give that up? I mean, I was living in a 5-bedroom house. I had a swimming pool. I was driving around in my Audi, you know, and I had like a housekeeper. And it was, you know, it on the outside, you would just think, oh, she's got everything. But I had to ask for every penny. I had to ask to put fuel in my car. I had to ask for money to go food shopping. And yeah, and then I think it got to the point where I wanted to go away for a weekend with my friends, and he said that I wasn't allowed to go. And he said, if you go, then that's it, we're over. And I went. I got in my Audi, I loaded it up with vodka. Me and my friend went to Sun City for the weekend.
Love it.
We planned to sleep in the car. It was hilarious. We had such fun.
So that was the end, was it?
Huh?
That was the end.
That was, yeah, and that was in 2008, I think. Or, yeah, the end of 2008.
Okay.
And yeah, I came back. I moved into the spare room, and then it just got yeah, really, really bad. And then my lawyer was bribing police to try and have me arrested. And even my lawyer said to me, Lisa, just go home and you know, we can still deal with it, the divorce, while you're in the UK.
As in go back to the United Kingdom.
Go back to the UK. So yeah, so in 2009, that's what I did. I came back. My mum sent me the money for the tickets. I left with 2 children, 2 suitcases, and £65 in my purse. And my friends were like, are you mad? Like, look at this beautiful house. Are you going to leave all this and you're going to go back to England and eat loads of carbs and potatoes and get fat? And I was like, yeah. So, and yeah, I did. And I came back, and I actually ended up moving to like Southeast London, to Chislehurst in Kent. And I went to Orpington College to do an access course so I could get into midwifery, so I could go to university. Yeah. And I remember I was sleeping on blow-up mattresses, getting on the kids were going to a childminder, and I was getting on a bus, you know, to like Orpington College, and with like all of these like South London kids, you know, on the bus, like speaking like, you know, like white kids sounding like they're black, you know.
Yeah. The rowdy teenagers.
Like, yeah, in it. And I was like, oh, this is hilarious, because at that point I'd not really heard that, you know, and I was like, what?
Oh yeah. Well, you just come from Africa, literally.
Yeah. But it was most, honestly, I had such fun. I made some amazing friends at college that I'm now still friends with. And
I'm guessing you felt free internally now. Yeah, you're away from this oppressive.
Yeah, like I said, I had nothing, but I was so happy. I was just so happy. I was so free. And that was my first taste of like taking
your own sovereignty,
going for it. So that's kind of like where my story started, as me as a midwife. So you know, like coming back to the UK, initially I was planning just to carry on with my reflexology, perhaps, and then, you know, work as a doula. And somebody, actually someone who's very, very dear, a friend of mine, and I will be forever grateful to her. And actually it was my ex-partner's mum. It was them, because he lived in Chislehurst, and she was amazing. She was the one who said to me, why don't you become a midwife, Lisa? And it was through her that then, and her son, that they both kind of like encouraged me and to go to college and go to university. And she helped with all my childcare. And yeah, I love her like a mother. She's absolutely like phenomenal. In fact, I owe everything to her. I get a bit emotional because
what a way to step up for someone, and also what an example of that.
Yeah.
To me, this is the first example of you taking that leap and instantly you're being protected by the universe. Someone has turned up in order to help you to achieve this dream. Look after your children. Like, what a way to help someone.
Yeah, she was amazing.
Wow.
And so I did my access course, and then did 3 years at university at the University of Greenwich. And I came out with a first degree, which for me was so incredible, because I was someone who'd left school with like no qualifications, like I scraped out with a few CSEs, like, and O levels at that time, you know. I was someone who was not academic at all, and then just absolutely loved university. It was like great for me, you know. So so then I started my career as a midwife. I qualified in 2013, and then my career in midwifery began. So I spent 7 years serving in the NHS, working in the hospitals. I worked in London hospitals, and also worked in Essex, and worked both on the wards, delivery suites, and quite a long stint in community as well, where I would be, you know, doing home births. But in that period of time, I completely lost myself, because I wasn't doing any reflexology, and I just got completely sucked into, you know, how midwifery is in an NHS, you know, hospital. And I remember even as a student, like my first shift, going to a delivery suite, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? You know, because I'd been mainly assisting women in birth centres or at home. And I was thinking, this is so far removed from where I've come, you know. But I was kind of like, I thought, oh, it's okay. Like, I can make a difference, you know, I can be the one to make a difference. And I remember even my second year thinking, I don't know if this is for me. But it was like, because I was doing so well with the academic side, I was like, no, keep going. You may as well do, you know, you may as well qualify and get your degree. But anyway, the whole 7 years went on, and during that time I got married again. It was quite a short relationship, someone I'd been with in 3 years in total. And that ended in 2019, in August 2019. And during that time, I say things had just got really stressful. Like my job, I was a community midwife, case loading women, getting called out in the middle of the night, you know, and it was just, it just took really everything out of me. It just drained me. I didn't have time for me. I didn't know who I was. And at the end of 2019, so this was a few months after I split up with my second husband, I went on to a plant medicine retreat and had a life-changing experience where like completely, like I had a huge like awakening. It was just kind of like an overnight, like I walked in and 3 days left, walked out as a different person. It was literally that.
And what pulled you to do this retreat? Like, what happened to get you onto that retreat?
Actually, when a friend of mine who'd actually has said to me, you know, like, Lisa, you keep making the same mistakes, not same mistakes, but you're repeating the same patterns.
Yeah.
And like, it's either you kind of like evolve or you remain the same. And I'd started to kind of like watch lots of videos and things around it. So I'm actually talking here about the sacred medicine called ayahuasca, which is from the Amazon. And yeah, for me it was a life-changing moment. And just before that, actually, I had also started practicing transcendental meditation, which again was kind of like, that made such a big difference. That was also been a key thing in my life, really, just introducing that. And that was, I think, in October 2019, and then November 2019 I went on to my first retreat.
Was the retreat in the UK?
Sorry?
Was the retreat in the UK, or did you have to go to Peru or somewhere?
It wasn't. No, because it's not legal to do it here.
Okay, so you went somewhere else. Yeah.
We went to Spain because it's
amazing.
It's actually legal over there. Yeah.
Okay.
So after that, so that was like the end of 2019, and then I came back. I was back at work, and I wasn't really desperately unhappy at work, you know, like the job itself. I was working with a really good team of midwives, and you know, it wasn't like a lot of people will, you know, like I say, there's normal things that people complain about the NHS, you know, like not having, you know, time for a break, not having time to even go for a wee when you're doing like a 12-hour, 13-hour shift, you know, that stuff is real, it happens. But for me, it was more about just not feeling like I just didn't resonate with that person anymore.
Yeah.
And it was the environment that I was working in, you know, it's like everything is fear-based. It's all the guidelines, you know, and the language that was used with women, you know, witnessing doctors tell women, you know, like if they didn't agree to have an induction, for example, you know, that they were putting their baby's life at risk. And
wow,
a lot of the language used around it is all fear-based, because it's all fear of litigation, you know.
Yeah.
Being told if you didn't write it down, then it didn't happen, it will never stand up in court of law. And I would just find myself sometimes, you know, trying to look after a woman, seeing that she clearly needs some support, and I'm so busy trying to scribble my notes and keep my notes up to date, and in the meantime get a trolley ready, you know, for like the anaesthetist to come in and to do an epidural or something. And it was just like, I was just like, this isn't me.
It's a far cry from the farm in South Africa.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, hang on, what's happened here? And yeah, and I think I just sat down on my bed one day and I just sobbed, and I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. And I said, when did it happen? You know, that writing my notes took precedence over giving the care that I felt a woman really deserved, you know, during this sacred time of giving birth, you know, because it is it's so sacred. And yeah, I just looked at, and then I got to the point where, and of course all the COVID stuff came about. And I think, you know, you know my views on everything around that, without going into that right now, because I'm not kind of like, I've never told people you should do this, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I believe in free will and free choice, and I still do. But the whole thing around COVID was that there wasn't a choice. That was the point. Yeah. It wasn't like whether you choose to have a vaccine or you don't choose to have a vaccine, that's your choice. But the fact is that we didn't have a choice, you know, everything was taken away. And yeah, it was, I mean, I think we all have our views around it. But of course, you know, I had a lot of people saying to me, oh, do you not believe in COVID then? Do you? And it was like, no, I've never said that. I've never said that at all. You know, it wasn't that, it was just the way it was handled. And but anyway,
And that's the time we met, basically.
That's exactly it. That was 2020.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got to the point where I just couldn't. I looked at this blue dress and I was like, I can't wear that anymore. That's not me. Like, I just didn't resonate with that person. You know, it felt like I was a robot wearing a blue dress. And I just thought, no, I just can't do it. I cannot do this anymore. And my inner voice, my intuition just kept saying to me, just resign, just resign. Like, what have you got to lose? You know, like, you'll be okay. You will be okay. And I did. And it was the best thing that I've ever done. Like, honestly, it was like, yeah, I have absolutely no regrets at all.
It's a massive jump, you know, just like, I guess that's just stopping. It's like, it's just straight middle of the path. You just stopped and said, I stop this now. I resign, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I needed to find out who I was again, you know?
Yeah. As you said, you stopped doing the reflexology, kind of like the things that you love to do for yourself and that you felt were your skills and talents. They slowly, the embers started to die out.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm a painter, I'm an artist, but I hadn't done any art all the time I'd been a midwife. I hadn't done anything, you know? And it was only then, like I say, once I think actually after my retreat, then I came home and then I started painting. And yeah, so like once I'd resigned, then it was kind of like, then I started to realize, well, have this time to find out who I was, you know? And I think I kind of like, yeah, it was like when I turned 50, I realized that, you know, this was a time to really be honored, you know, like a lot of women, they kind of think that's it when they hit the menopause or whatever, that's it, you know, life is over. But, you know, to kind of like be, I don't know, a woman really comes into her like priestess power, you know, at this time. And I really felt that that's where I was, or I was moving into that, you know.
Yeah.
And I really felt that need to just find out who that person was, you know, and to express her. And at the end of 2021, I decided to leave the UK and leave everything. Like, I gave up my house. So I was renting like a 3-bedroom house. So I gave up my house. I donated like most of my belongings, sold some furniture. Both my boys, teenagers, and having sort of like gone through the COVID thing. So my eldest son wasn't even able to do his GCSEs because of COVID, because of lockdown. He'd just been sitting in his room, like festering for like 18 months. Wow. And my youngest son was pretty much the same. And, you know, I just felt like it was really stagnant. It was a stagnant energy. You know, I wasn't working, but I was like, this part of me wanted to come out and be birthed, you know. I had to birth the true person. And I said to my boys, look, you know, if you're going to go to university, if you want to go to college, if you're going to have careers and you want to stay here, fine, we'll stay here. But none of them, you know, neither of them are academic at all. And they were just like, no interest. And I said, okay, well, I want to go off to Peru. If you want to come with me, you can. Or you can go to South Africa and go and stay with your dad and live with your dad. So they both chose to go to South Africa. And yeah, that's kind of like where
your personal journey starts.
My personal journey started, absolutely. So yeah,
so was Peru the first place you after?
Peru was the first place. Yes.
Why Peru?
Okay, so well, there was somebody that I knew from kind of like the medicine world, I'll say, and he was living in the Sacred Valley with his wife, who's
The
Peruvian.
Sacred Valley. What?
Yeah, the Sacred Valley. Yeah.
It sounds like you read like the Celestine Prophecy and was like, I'm going straight to Peru.
Yeah, it's an area called like Urubamba, which is, yeah, it's near to Cusco anyway.
Okay.
And he also knew a midwife that was a Scottish midwife, and there was kind of like I kind of planned initially to go and hang out with some midwives and doulas and kind of get into, yeah, like finding out about how birth happens in Peru.
Wow.
But I was taken on a very different course and ended up going down to the Amazon and spending 3 months with a Shipibo family and living with them on their healing center, which was basically like in the jungle, and doing like a plant dieta. So with them.
A dieta, just so people don't know, is like when you take you kind of just fast only on a specific like plant medicine, right?
Yeah,
For a long. So how long did you do?
I did about 8 weeks.
8 weeks?
Yeah, yeah, we did about 8 weeks.
On what?
Yeah, so
okay to say on what plant was you fasted on?
It was called Chai Kuni.
Okay. Is this like, did it have psychedelic properties? Was it healing? Was it detoxing?
No, it's these plants themselves. When you diet a plant, basically what it means is you go on a very strict diet. So you go on a very like basic diet of like no salt, no sugar, no spices. Yeah, so you kind of like have quite a very bland diet and quite a light diet as well.
Yeah.
And when you consume the plant, so the Shipibos have, I mean, there's a whole, like, the jungle is like their medicine cabinet. Okay, so there's many plants you can diet with. Like there's a very famous one called Noya Rao, which is the tree. It's like basically like is like tree of illumination. There's another plant called Bobinsana. So they all have different healing properties.
Okay.
Bobisana is like a very heart-opening plant. I haven't dieted with that. But when you diet with the plants, it's almost like you receive the downloads from the plant. So you receive guidance and medicine and information from the plant when you're drinking the plant.
Yeah.
And you would alternate days, you would go into ceremony and you would drink the ayahuasca, which brings everything in. So it like brings all of the teachings in. So
every other couple of days you're having ayahuasca?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like normally like 3 times a week. Yeah.
3 times a week.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And the medicine out there is completely different. It's like the difference between having it in Europe is like having like
your IB for ayahuasca
plant version, and out there it's
your Instagram ayahuasca is a bit different.
yeah, completely.
Whoa.
But, yeah,
3 times a week. I didn't even know that. Jesus.
Yeah, very transformative. Another transformative experience, but just being actually in the jungle itself, like living in like a wooden hut, you know, with just some mosquito nets.
And all the sounds must have been incredible. All the senses must have been so alive.
Incredibly, like, and having like, we had like chickens, you know, like would come up on the veranda. Wow. And just hang out and jump into the hammock with me and stuff. And like just having a very basic, you know, like one tap where we'd go and fill up and to wash up with, and like, you know, gas burners to cook with, very basic toilet and a shower. And sometimes we wouldn't have water for like 3 days. Electric would go off, you know. And I just but I just loved it, you know. I didn't see a washing machine. I think actually for the whole of 2022 I didn't use a washing machine.
Wow.
or have a hot shower, or sleep in a comfortable bed. But you know what, I wouldn't have changed it for the world. But yeah, so Peru was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And whilst I was there, I was guided to go to India. And I'd actually planned to kind of stay in South America. Like before I'd left Peru, I wasn't planning to come back to the UK. I was like planning to go for infinitely and just be
nomad, just out there in
nomads, or kind of like or settling somewhere, maybe going off to Costa Rica and exploring a bit there. But yeah, so while I was on Dieta, I was guided to go to India. And I had a friend in the UK who had been to Rishikesh and studied yoga herself. So she'd also studied Kundalini yoga. So I messaged her and I was like, hey, can you give me the details of your, your guru? So she said, yeah, sure. So she gave me the details. And anyway, I came back to the UK, and then like 2 weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks later, I got my visa.
He was gone straight back. Yeah.
Went out to India, only planning to go for like a month to learn yoga. And oh my God, I just fell in love with India. It was like, as soon as I touched down, it was like a feeling like I'm home. I can't even explain it. I can't explain it. It was just mad. And yeah, I did my 200 hours course in like a month, and that was incredible. Just met some amazing, beautiful people. And then I decided to stay on. So I found myself like what we call like a homestay, which is just like a basic room with a little kitchen area and a toilet and shower, and had my little room, and carried on going to like do some private classes like pranayama and yoga. And then I did a sound healing course. And whilst I was doing the sound healing course, I met a girl who had been having singing lessons. And I was intrigued because I've been thinking about having singing lessons. Actually, whilst I was in Peru, I also met a singing teacher and was thinking then, I really want to kind of have some singing lessons, because I always loved singing, but I've always been told, should I say, that I couldn't sing, like my mum and dad would make jokes saying, don't give up your day job, and I guess it's always stuck, you start having these
heavy words from your parents. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you have these limiting beliefs about yourself, don't you? And so yeah, and also this is quite significant. During my yoga course, we were learning like the bija mantras, and each chakra has a sound which we call a bija mantra. Okay, so like your root chakra is lam, and anyway, your throat chakra is hum. And I was aware that I had blockage in my throat chakra, and I also know this because during one of my ayahuasca ceremonies, I was taken into a past life experience where I had my throat slit, which so anyway, I knew that there was something to do with my throat. I had these blockages. And my maiden name, or my birth name, was Hum, Lisa Hum. And I hated that name. Like I hated it because I used to get tormented at school. I used to get called Lisa Hum, Bum, Humbug. And so when I became Harris, I just kept Harris, because it was like, no, I don't want to be Hum.
It's a little more Harris. Standard. Yeah.
But it was almost like when we were chanting this bija mantra, like hum, 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 I had such like somatic response. And I was like, wow, it's like I've just been, it's like this person I just kind of shut away. Like, Lisa Hum, who's she? I don't want to know you. And I started to do so much work. There's just so much work that came up, like inner child work. And yeah, like I remember just being in my room. This is to say while I was doing this course, and just crying and talking to this little girl, you know, and telling her that it was okay and that, you know, it wasn't her fault. And almost like I was talking to a small child.
Wow.
And yeah, there was just so much healing that was taking place. So when I heard about this singing guru, or my friend told me that he'd opened her voice up within like a month, and I was like, okay, I need to see this guru. And I did. I think this was on the Saturday we had the conversation, and then on the Monday I had my first lesson. And
what kind of singing are we talking about? Like, you know, obviously you're a guru, like people like, you know, what kind of singing is that?
Okay, so not really, it's not singing, it's I mean, yeah, he teaches like classical Indian singing, but it's more like I wanted to learn more about like chanting. So
Okay. It's like in a Kirtan sense.
Kirtan, yeah.
Kirtan, okay, yeah.
Bhakti Yoga. So basically, Bhakti Yoga is like devotional songs.
Devotional songs, okay, yeah.
So when you sing, you know, like Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, yeah? That's like yeah, or Om Namah Shiva. These are all, there's basically, they're like devotional songs, but we call it like Bhakti Yoga.
Okay,
yeah,
makes total sense, yeah.
Which is like the high, or the way it was taught to me from like the Hare Krishnas was that it's like the topmost form of yoga. So it's like the quickest, the most direct path to connection. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have like different steps, but it's basically like yeah, it's like direct access really when you're chanting.
Yes, yeah.
So, but from the kind of work that we did was more like, it was more like vocal, like toning, yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of just like like oms and like, you know, sa, and yeah, kind of going through like the harmonics.
Okay.
And he also knew that I loved Kirtan, and so he said to me, okay, well, I can teach you harmonium as well, and then you can lead Kirtan. So that's what I did. So
and kind of the instrument like that, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I actually ended up moving into a room which was adjacent to his house.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of other students there as well, who were learning tabla and things with him. And I called it like the monkey ghetto, because it literally was like in the ghetto, and there was like monkeys outside on my balcony, you know, they'd be like knocking on the window.
I remember seeing it on your social media stuff. It was insane. It was like a Hollywood movie. It was like just chilling there with bananas and stuff. It was, yeah, it truly was insane.
Yeah. But you know what, I used to walk out in the morning and just look around, and I'd just be absolutely in awe of the magic. And I was like right near the Ganga as well, the river, and where I could hear like the aarti, which was every evening at 6 o'clock, you could hear like the aarti, which is where they do like the whole is it like a kind of like a ceremony. Yeah, it's a big thing anyway, like people, like loads of people go there. Wow. by the river, and they give blessings to the Ganga, and it's an amazing thing. So I could hear this like it was like a stone's throw from where I was living, and just to kind of like be there was just
It must be such an overload for the senses in the best way, considering what, only 2 years prior you was writing notes on a ward, you know, denying someone the care that you really wanted to give them as a midwife. And within 2 years, you're now, did you say it was the Ganges you was there? That's where you was.
Yeah, in Rishikesh,
Wow, you
the
know, you're
Ganga,
right there,
yeah.
surrounded by
Yeah.
monkeys, fulfilling like deep dreams and like having deep, it sounds like healing and childhood healing and everything, but like in
It
flow,
was
you're being
insane.
guided.
Yeah. So I was having singing lessons, but it wasn't really like, it was like lessons. I don't want to say lessons because it was more like I was receiving downloads. I mean, afterwards, I was strict instructions. I wasn't allowed to speak to anyone for like an hour. I had to go to my room and meditate and sit quietly. I wasn't allowed to, you know,
Right,
even
yeah.
speak, or, you know, because it was more about the energy. And I remember one day, I went down for my usual lesson in the morning, because I mean I was doing like sort of 2 hour lessons a day, and then I was practicing for like an hour or two a day as well by myself. And I remember going down there and I sat down and I started trying to sing and I couldn't sing, and my voice just like, it was like nothing was happening. And I started crying, and I said to him, like, I don't know why I'm crying. And he was like, no, I said, it's okay, just, it's fine, just let it come. And then I said, I don't know why this is happening. And he said, it's okay, goes, because I'm playing the Kali scale. And I've got no idea what the Kali scale is, but obviously he's a strong devotee of like Ma Kali and Ma Durga, as I am. And I'd also really felt kind of like Kali's energy with me. And yeah, it was just quite phenomenal. And then,
So he was playing a certain note which represents like a Hindu god, am I right? And by you being in the presence of that note, it did something for you. Is that kind of what you're saying there?
Ma Kali is the goddess,
Okay.
who is, I mean, you heard of like Durga. So Durga is like Shakti.
Okay.
And Kali was born from the third eye of Durga.
Okay.
It's quite confusing. Even I kind of like, but yeah, she's like one of the goddesses. You have like the goddesses and the deities.
Okay.
And yeah, so she's like the Shakti energy.
Okay. Yeah. The feminine.
But there's like, Durga has many different like avatars or faces. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
Kali is just one of them.
Okay.
So yeah, and then I went to the south of India for like 10 days, and stayed on this like beautiful resort. It was actually one of the students, who was also at my guru's place. He had some friends who he knew who owned this place, and I went down there and I managed to get a very nice rate, and I literally had a bungalow that was on the beach, and I had like a whole beach to myself, because it was like
Is this the
monsoon.
video you sent me earlier?
Yes.
Maybe I can, let me
Yes,
pull
I
that up
think so,
actually.
yeah.
Because yeah, how insane.
This is in a place called Kumta.
Okay, here we go. Wow. So you woke up to this?
Yeah, I would literally like wake up to this and I would go walking up and down the beach.
Wow.
And one day I walked up and there was like all of this debris that had been washed up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it had been quite stormy. And there was like shoes and, you know, pieces like bottles and all kinds of stuff that had just been washed up.
Yeah.
And as I looked down, there was a picture of Sai Baba. And I was just like, wow. Yes.
This is the actual pictures, just so everyone
This
can
is the
see.
actual picture,
One.
yeah.
She
You can
sent it
see
to
my
me.
foot at the bottom, actually.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
So yeah, I'd literally, that's how it was presented. And I was just like, okay. And I was thinking, should I take it? And I was like, there was a part of me thought, no, somebody else needs this. Because for me, it was just like an affirmation of already of like my,
Can you explain why it was an affirmation? So why was this significant that this kind of like on this shore was like presented to you? Why was that significant for you?
I think at the time, because I had my headphones on and I was singing along to a song called Sita Ram.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, because he's like a saint, he's known for like,
He's a big deal in that community. Yeah, massively.
yeah. I mean, if you Google him, he's a Satya Sai Baba. He's known for like manifesting things, you know, out of thin air.
I've got a statue of, if I'm right, don't they consider him the reincarnation of this guy?
Yes.
This is Sai Baba here.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
So he's like, they considered him like the 20th century living version of him. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Beautiful. So he's just washed up right by your toes.
Yeah.
While this energy is already kind of being introduced into your life a lot, obviously.
Yeah. And I just kind of like thought, okay, for me, it was just like a sign. It was like a sign of like, I don't know, like you're on the right path. I mean, not that I needed a sign anyway. I didn't need anything. I didn't need an affirmation, because in my heart, I'd already felt like my soul was home. Yep. You know, it was like, I know that I am exactly where I need to be. There's no question about it. But there was a part of me was thinking, maybe somebody else needs that. You know? So
you left it then? You did leave it?
Yeah, I left it because I wanted somebody else to have it.
Wow, profound. Because it showed you the message had been given to you. The reason you saw it, you'd received it, you know. Wow, you didn't need to hold on to it anymore.
Yeah,
that's
and
powerful.
I wanted it to touch somebody else, you know.
So at this stage of your life, you're really starting to feel quite in flow, it seems. You've left the United Kingdom, you've gone first of all to Peru, then you've come back for a few days, gone to India, planned to stay there for a month, but ended up just being guided by, and literally, I'm going to be honest, it sounds exactly like the journey of the person when in the Celestine prophecy. And if no one's read that, I think it's quite a testimony to this story. The same kind of thing, which is what James Redfield, the author, predicted would happen in the 21st century, that, you're going to just be led to things that lead you in deeper and deeper into yourself.
Oh, it was insane. Oh yeah, I mean, even just like the synchronicities that were happening. I mean, like in Rishikesh, you like think of something and then it happens, you know. Wow. It was insane. And my friend who actually told me about the ashram where I went to do the yoga had given me these 2 postcards for some Hare Krishna monks. Okay, she'd have written their names on the envelopes and said to me, okay, so they will come to your like closing ceremony. So when you see them, can you give them these, you know, these from me? And I was like, yeah, sure. But they never came to our ceremony. I never even heard of them. I was like, oh, well, I'll just take them back with me, you know. And then I'd met a girl in a cafe and I said to her like, oh, I really, you know, is there any Kirtan going? And she put me onto like a WhatsApp group. And I saw a Kirtan advertised for like a Saturday night, and I thought, oh, that looks good. Maybe I'll go to that one. So I messaged them on WhatsApp and I said, you know, is it okay if I come along? They were like, yes, you're more than welcome. So I turn up and I was like, no, they said to me, I'm looking at them and I'm thinking they look like Hare Krishnas. And they said to me, are you Alice's friend? And I was like, yes. And then they were like, oh yeah. And they said their names. And it was basically the same 2 monks who she had given me the cards for. Wow. You know. And I was just like, okay.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, they invited me to the ISKCON temple and I used to go there regularly for you know,
So how many months are we now into India? Like you went for, you wanted to go for a month. How long is it now?
I stayed there for 6 months in total. Yeah, I think it was in my second month that I met them. And yeah, I really started to get into, like, say, Bhakti Yoga, and I used to go to like a lot of their kirtans and things.
And if you don't mind me asking, like because a lot of people are gonna no doubt be thinking, oh, this sounds all amazing, but how are you even surviving? Like were you trying to find work, or was like, how are you living in hostels, or what kind of, like, how was your life condition and like all of that
Yeah,
stuff? How was you making it work?
no, I had some savings,
Yeah.
and it was very, very cheap in India, so that's where I was at that point. um but then, yeah, my visa was only for 6 months,
Yeah.
and then at the end of no, when was it? Yeah, I came back on the 10th of October, and
From India.
from India. And just before I came back, my youngest son, who's now 17, told me that he wanted to come back to the UK
From South Africa.
from
Okay.
South Africa, because things were not really working out with his dad. So I said to him, well, okay, we don't have anywhere to live. And like,
I gave it all up.
so,
Yeah.
like, yeah, exactly. And I said to him that, I'm planning to go to Mexico next. So if you want to come to Mexico, then that's fine.
So he was
And
16 at the time.
yeah. So
Yeah.
he was like, yeah, I'm down for that. Let's go to Mexico. But
Wow.
I was kind of thinking, I'm going to go there and probably stay there for, I don't know, a long time.
Yeah.
And was thinking to then from Mexico go back over to Peru or go to Costa Rica. So that was kind of like where I was planning to go. And I've been learning Spanish, so for me it was great because I was getting to practice speaking Spanish. But my son had no real investment in being in Mexico or learning
Yeah.
Spanish, and didn't really want to stay there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we stayed there for 3 months, and yeah, had an amazing time in Mexico. But then it got to like when did it get to, like, January?
Of
And
this year now or last year?
yeah, this was January 2023.
Okay.
And I'd started to, like, run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
So Mexico is a little bit more expensive than India,
Yeah.
and also traveling with a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't just supporting myself, but I was supporting him. And I'd started to do, like, teach English online. So I was able to kind of like, I was able to make ends meet. But then I was thinking, but it's kind of like a bit pointless because, he doesn't really want to make a life out here.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't feel the
And
longevity there.
yeah. And I remember one day looking at my bank balance, and I had £2.22 left.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, well, that's an angelic number.
Yeah, you got to gas yourself up. You got to make yourself believe it. Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, I
And
just
that would petrify a lot of people, right? You're in another country with your son with £2.22
yeah.
to your entire name. Yeah.
But you know what? I just trust it. I've just trust. That's it. I was like trusting.
But
And
this isn't a blind trust that you're talking about. This has now got stronger and stronger through going through all of these countries and these experiences and having more and more faith in the synchronicities and the things that were happening that would make it. So I'm guessing this is why at this point, when you did have only £2.22 in your bank account, you knew, why would I fear? Why would I slander everything that's happened to give me this faith at this point? Is that right?
yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, just to kind of like have that freedom. I was still waking up looking at mountains every morning, and
Exactly.
like,
You valued that more.
oh yeah, like walking down the street and like people, like, just Mexican people walking past, and just complete strangers, they all like say, buenos dias, and it's just so nice, like it's, yeah, it was
Yeah,
just
it's not
amazing.
Chiselhurst. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I made a friend out there as well, Anwar, who well, this is a funny story. I actually met him on Mexican Tinder, right?
Yeah. Mexican Tinder. Who knew?
I was doing a work away. Well, Jake and I were doing what we call a work away, where you work in places in exchange for your accommodation.
Nice. Yeah.
And the people we were staying with was actually, she was an English lady and married to a Mexican, and she was also an English teacher. And she said to me that she had a French friend, who used to get clients from Tinder, right? And I was like, really? Like clients? She's like, yeah. She goes, you'll get, like, you might get some clients going on Tinder. And I was like, oh, I don't know, right? So anyway, I just thought, well, why not?
I got £2.22, man. Let me jump on this Tinder.
Yeah. So I think this is before I had two. Yeah, this was before I had a little bit more money than that. Not much more, but anyway. And yeah, and I met this guy, and he is phenomenal. He's like, yeah, he's just, I can't even say, he's just been like a real.
This is a Mexican man.
He's Mexican. His uncle, right, became the president of Mexico when he was 3 years old, right? His mum was mum was a psychiatrist. His dad was a teacher, a lecturer at university, and his uncle went from being a lawyer to being a president, like, overnight.
Wow.
And yeah, so for like 6 years of his life, he was like driven around in, like, you know, with armed guards and things,
like diplomatic security and all that kind of stuff.
His auntie was like kidnapped. He was
kidnapped.
He was bilingual in kindergarten. He's met John Pope II. John Pope.
He's just floating on Mexican Tinder. Yo, yeah, wow.
It's hilarious. Not saying hilarious, but he's just one of these people. He's a bit like a male version of me, because he's just like he's sailed across the ocean, wow, like in a yacht with, like, you know, as an inexperienced
a very free spirit, it seems. Yeah.
He's a very free spirit, and yeah, become a very good friend. I'd love to actually, like, have a podcast with him or something, like
yeah, that's no doubt your next one with him.
Hilarious. Yeah. He's not saying hilarious, but he's I'm in awe of him.
Wow.
Yeah, he's only just turned 50 as well. But yeah, a really cool guy. So I met some amazing people actually in Mexico as well.
So how did Mexico wrap up, and kind of how do we get to, where are you now? You're in the United Kingdom today, are you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So how did Mexico finish for you?
Yeah, so that was it. So after I had the £2.22, I was kind of like, right, okay, and yeah, just decided then to come back, because I thought, this isn't now so much about my journey. This is now about my children.
Yeah.
You know, who are both teenagers, and you know, getting them kind of like settled and sorted, really. So yeah, so we came back at the beginning of February, and I've been staying with family, and it's been, yeah, I've been through quite a dark soul of the night.
Like since returning.
Yeah, since returning, it's been really quite heavy energy. But all the time, I just, like I say, I've just continued with my trust, knowing that it's going to be okay. And I mean,
I just thought, maybe, do you think the energy you're experiencing since you've come back feels heavy? Do you think it's always been that heavy, but because you now know yourself, and so you're lighter within yourself, you feel the density more? Maybe.
Possibly.
Do we become accustomed to the heaviness in life when you're not chasing your authentic self, for instance? You almost become dull to it, or numb, potentially desensitized.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's kind of like a lot to unpick there, really. There's, I mean, let's say I believe that there's never any mistakes in life. Like, you always are exactly where you're meant to be, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I've learned to see, like, the perfection within the imperfection, if that makes sense. But you know, like since even being back, I mean, it's been quite incredible. Like everything, I've had everything that I need. Like the universe seems to always provide me with whatever I need, you know. So even though right now, I'm looking to still find a home, but you know, like I won £1,800 on the lottery, and I've never bought a lottery ticket in my life. Right? And,
what are the likelihoods of that? We're winning the lottery, but first of all, on the first time you've ever done it.
Yeah. And
that must have helped you out.
I'd found a check up in the loft, okay, that had been written out by my late stepfather. And the date that the check had been stamped was the date of my birthday. Right. And there was an amount in there that also was the same numbers as the sort code. So I was like, now this is no coincidence, because I literally, it was like laying there, like I go up into the loft. It's not like I had to go through anything. It was like literally there in front of me. And I was like, huh?
Like it's been placed there.
And it was like stamped on the day I was born. And I was like, wow. Okay. So I took these numbers and I just said to like, because I've never bought a ticket. So I said to my mum, like, she's got an app. I was like, could you just put these numbers on for me, please? She did it. Didn't think anything of it, right? It was only like 2 weeks later. She didn't even check the numbers. 2 weeks later, she gets a phone call from Camelot. She's sitting there going, what? She thought it was like some kind of scam.
Yeah. I think most people would. Yeah.
So I was able to, like, with that money, like buy myself like a secondhand car, you know, and it's
so truly
like,
supported as soon as you've landed, you know, the things have been given to you.
Yeah, like again, and it's like all these synchronicities are happening. Yeah, and but I'm just kind of at this stage now where I'm still like rebirthing another part of myself, you know. Like getting I'm setting up a website for my artwork. I'm also setting up a business as you know, as like a birth keeper or a pregnancy coach.
Wow.
So that's something that I'm in the process of developing right now.
It really feels like for me, there's, you know, the idea like a lot of people they reach spiritual enlightenment, and I use the metaphor of they've gone up to the top of the mountain and they've ignited the flame, but a lot of people don't come back down that mountain and distribute that power back into society. A lot of people think it's about like just going off and finding yourself and just leaving all of this, but like your mother, your children, your next door neighbor, so many people are suffering, and so many people just need that, like, you know, examples of these esoteric or Eastern philosophies and these plant medicines. They need to, like, we deserve in the West as well, in the density of Babylon, to have people that are brave enough to go out there but then come back. And I think a lot of us are being called back to where we are, where our natural environment was, so that we can be that person, so we can embody that light for this environment. Yeah,
but we're here to have this human experience, you know. It's not always about kind of like being you know, I don't know, when you die you're going to be enlightened, aren't you? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, why the rush to get there, you know? Because when you reach this enlightenment, it's kind of like, it is all like light, there's no contrast, you know. But we are here living in duality, experience polarity, having an experience. And I think this is about it. It's like you're saying, like seeing the perfection within the imperfection. And actually, I wanted to sort of touch on something which I think you'd put a post on before about saying how people saying that it's all love and light, which is just a load of bollocks.
Yeah, it is, you know? Really is. Yeah.
Because it isn't, you know, it's about kind of like seeing the beauty in everything.
Yeah.
You know, okay, you can't look at a dog turd and call it a rose, right? But you can just look at it as a dog turd and go, it's a dog turd, you know.
Yeah, and appreciate it for what it is.
And appreciate it for what it is.
If it wasn't for that, the dog would be dead. It would be all clogged up, wouldn't it? It's the natural. It's true though. Yeah.
But maybe that's not the best analogy, but
No, it is. It is.
I
It
think
really is.
it's about embodying all aspects
Mm-hmm.
of ourselves, you know, and yeah.
I was speaking about
Also,
this on a live recently, only 2 days ago. I was saying a lot of people that they would like to think, say it was the color black. Oh God, can you remove the color black because I don't like it and it's evil? But if God was to remove the color black, all other colors wouldn't exist anymore because
no,
all that is black and the white and the purple and the polka dot. It's everything, you know. And so to understand that is to be that, and that is a higher level of consciousness to understand it, even while still being in the duality of it, though.
yeah,
I
100%.
was I was wondering if could touch on, because something we spoke about on the live before is something that happened to you very recently. I know that you're championing a book right now with some women, and you're an author. You found another skill that you
Yes,
didn't realize that you was. You was a poet and you didn't even know it. You
yeah,
had this, and you had an opportunity where you had to kind of pay for something, and and again, just the synchronicities have come in to make sure that the money came. And this is
yeah,
why I've wanted to talk to you today, because if someone's really listening to your story, it is on the human surface level, it might seem like you don't have anything, but when you actually understand who you are and that you're in flow, you know you have everything, and you will always have more than you'll ever need. And I'm going through quite a transformative time right now, and I had a bit of an explosive start to my year. And I was doing Cambo on January the 5th in Palmer's Green in London. And the lady, her name's Jade, she took her arms around me and she said, Indigo, you do know you will always have more than you'll need. And at this time, I'd just been kicked out of the house by my mum. And even though I knew this, my human self was a bit shaky. And I said to her, yeah, I know it. But she knew that I wasn't saying it with my chest. And she shook me and she said, you'll always have more than you'll ever need. And then within about 24 hours of me having this massive argument with my mum and her kicking me out of the house on a permanent level, where you can't go back. By the way, we're great friends now, but it was like a moment where it was a life-changing moment for us. Within 24 hours, the most incredible organic amount of synchronizations happened. I didn't go out and search for anything. And now right here, I'm in Manchester in a 3-bedroom house by myself, living the most incredible experience right now, where I just have everything I need. And it's right down to the last cup of coffee, whatever it is, everything's been given to me at a time when, if I was to really look at it from my lower chakras or my lower life state, it would be a time to really panic and be petrified and to think, oh my God, what am I going to do? Everything's upside down. But when you just know, and I really thank you, Jade, for watching, if you ever watch this, when you know you'll always have everything that you'll need, which is what you're going to explain right now, is you just are in so much flow. I truly, Priya, have absolutely no fear at all about anything as in what's to come, because I know I'm not going to slander myself by not believing and having faith in everything that's led me here, the synchronizations. And it's not just like you land on a nice new house. It's like my number's 27, for instance. 27 is 9. This house is 9. There'll be so many numbers and numerologies and synchronizations that only you in your heart know. Okay, there's some hidden hand guiding us. We can only see, as humans, 0.04% of the light spectrum, and we can only hear 0.04% of the audio spectrum. We have to have faith in something so much larger than us. And when you do that, you live the life that you've just lived, Priya, where you go in flow. It sounds like you're going back to like past life locations and collecting them downloads. You're doing things that people could only ever dream of, but it's only because you had the courage to believe.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I wouldn't give up any of it. Like if you said to me right now, like, okay, Lisa, I'll pay you 100K to go every day and work 8 hours in the same place every day, I'd say no. Like, no. And the way I look at it is like, I imagine that kind of like God runs my bank account for me. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's it's about kind of like trusting. It's knowing that something will happen, but without attaching any expectations as to how or when it's going to happen. That is the key. It's about not attaching any expectations.
Yes.
Okay. But knowing deep inside, and that's faith. It's just simply faith, And okay, so I'll tell you what happened. So I was invited into like it was kind of like a very sacred a sacred space, I'm going to say, okay, which requires some financial
input.
And I didn't have that money at the time, but there was something telling me this isn't a mistake, you know, like how I'd even met these people, you know, there was definitely no coincidence of how it happened.
You had to be there. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I kind of gave a commitment. Okay. I was like, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get this money. But, you know, I can make a plan. So, and I also knew that it was like, if I made this kind of like one step, that the universe would come in and help me. Okay.
That's the secret. Yes.
And
wow.
Me, okay, so I've been wanting to kind of like share my stories, get a social media, you know,
presence. Yeah.
Exactly. And I kept thinking, I need to do some Instagram lives. I need to do this. And I know I should be doing this. And I just became so anxious about it. It was like my one fear of like, well, what have I got to say? And, you know, I'm not ready yet. I kept procrastinating, you know, like, oh, I need to do this first.
Yeah.
You know, do the laundry, whatever, you know. Like,
yeah.
No, tomorrow I'll do it. And then I just thought, well, okay, what if I just share my journey now, you know, because I'm not like right up here on the top of the mountain, but what if I share my story going up the mountain and I help inspire other people, you know?
Yeah.
So last week I decided to take the plunge and do my first Instagram live.
You did. Yeah.
And I sat in the park for like 2 hours, like 2 fucking hours. That's going, like,
wow.
Couldn't press the button. Okay. And
was that throat tracker feeling like it was closing up?
Oh, it was just like, honestly, it was ridiculous. Because like I say, all the things I've done, you know, and I've kind of done some crazy shit, and I've like, you know, taken huge risks, and most things that a lot of people would have a lot of fear about. And I've just, this one thing I was just like,
Instagram live, and that was the thing that got Sivopriya shaken. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I did the recording, right? Okay, I'm not gonna lie. 1 hour later, I received a message, okay, a WhatsApp from someone that I had lent some money to, okay, a couple of years ago. And I really didn't expect to see that money. Like, I'm not saying not expect, because, you know, I just didn't think that they would have it now.
Yeah.
And they literally messaged me and said, hey, Lisa, can I send you that money? And
so just to clarify, this is an hour after you've done your first Instagram live, and you've been pretty petrified, but it's been calling you for a couple of weeks to do it. And the second you finally did it, had the courage to do it, it opened up this new way to support you. That's the secret.
Exactly. And it was just the amount that I needed to put in. And
wow.
That's kind of like, to me, speaks volumes.
Yeah.
But I do always, like I say, I do trust that I will always have everything I need, and nothing that is meant for you will miss you. You know, that's what I believe. That's what I think.
I've been screaming that for so long, and it gives me so much faith. Whatever's meant for me, it won't miss me, and whatever's not meant for me will not enter my experience. And so even if the most traumatic thing happens, I know in my soul it's part of my karmic experience to go through this. You know, and when you know that, it does take a lot of the weight.
Yeah, because I actually remember you saying to me back in 2020, I remember you saying to me, so Lisa, do you not have any fear? Do you remember that? We've had
the deepest of conversations, so yeah.
You asked me a question and you said to me, so do you not have any fear of anything then? And I remember saying to you, no, it's not like I don't have any fear, but I know that whatever comes into my path is for my highest good. Like, and I don't judge it as good or bad or right or wrong. You know, I just see it as kind of like that's what it is.
Yeah.
you know, and whatever it is, you know, whether you see it as a challenging situation or, you know, whatever, I always think like, okay, what is the medicine in this then?
Yeah.
What can I learn from this? What can I take from it? And when you start seeing as everything is energy and everything as a mirror as well, you know, it's like, because, you know, it's like the microcosm, the macrocosm, you know, we want to change our external environment, we first have to change the inner environment. Okay, so when
Wow.
you change the way you view things, you are viewing life through a very different lens.
Wow.
You know,
I was going to ask you this one of the questions that I was going to ask you is, in Buddhism we have this term esho funi, which is the oneness of the self in the environment, and this kind of the idea exactly what you just said. If you want to, you can actually, first of all, you see yourself within your environment. You can also see like the collective karma of a nation within like the nation's environment. But the most powerful way, for instance, if you're having frustrations living at home with a mother that's driving you crazy, or a husband, you're never going to be able to change them, but you can change, like you said, yourself. And yeah, could you maybe speak on that a bit? The idea, like, is this something you found on your travels throughout Peru, then India and Mexico? Was you finding yourself in other people in reflections, and was you seeing your environment? If you was in a really incredible mood, did you realize that things were more synchronistic and bright, and them kind of things?
yeah, I mean, it's all been magical for me. I
Wow.
can't, you know, I every second, even like say in India, you know, waking up in like the ghetto, it's like, it's just, it's about seeing, it's about finding the beauty in the chaos. Do you know what I'm saying? Of
Wow. Yeah.
like finding, always seeing the beauty in everything.
And the beauty in the uncertainty, right? Because
Yeah,
it's in the uncertainty. I call it samadhi, no man's land. That's the most
yeah.
powerful place to be, because otherwise it's Aaron Miller, the human, or Lisa Harris, the human, trying to control the next step. But when you trust and surrender and you're in uncertainty, but that's with faith as well. It's not just like
Oh, but
blind faith, you know.
there's a quote from that Osho book. Let me just get it. Hang on.
Please. Did you read a lot on your travels? Is there any books that
Oh,
like really
so
blew
much.
you away? Is there anything
Yeah.
you could
I'm
recommend to
reading an
anyone that?
amazing one at the moment, actually, which I haven't quite finished,
Mhm.
called The Surrender Experiment.
Oh wow, maybe you can read some of that, or if not, I could read it out actually. You've sent me the photos, because that was
Yeah,
some really powerful stuff there. Maybe do you remember the 3 pages you sent me? I can send you the page number if it was.
yeah, no, I know the pages. But this
Yeah.
guy basically, he decides to just say yes and allow life to make the decisions.
Hmm.
So he starts off where he's a he's a college he's at college doing a doctorates, but he kind of drops out. He then practices like Zen meditation and has this enlightening experience. And then he decides that he wants to go and live in the middle of a field. He buys this like land
Hmm.
and just practice. You know, he spends hours just doing his practice in solitude.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, you know, like you're saying about how some people just take themselves out of life.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so that's kind of like where he thought he needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he then decides, because he's got the voice, he's talking about the voice in his head that doesn't shut up, you
Hmm.
know, who like judges everything, you know, like just looking at a, you know, person walking down the street. Oh, this person's going to, oh, I don't like that person, I'm not going to speak to that person.
Hmm.
You know, it's kind of that constant little chattery voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he then wants to kind of like know how to just not ignore that voice, but what would happen if he just says yes and allows life to take him to places, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he gets proposed a number of things which his normal voice would say no way. Like they ask him to be a university lecturer, and his voice is going, I don't want to do that, I want to be in the middle of the field. But then he's like, yes, and he agrees to it. And then it talks about how it just leads, like all these things leads onto something else, and it's just phenomenal, like really, yeah, amazing book.
So again, like it's kind of like an extreme example of where, but like that's where we should be, in a much more receptive kind of like flow. And because a lot of the time it's the ego will stop us from entering something which is actually the best thing for us, because it might mean you might not be able to have your fiat currency in your bank for a little while, or you might have to surrender your house, or you might have to be a little bit brave and, like you said, sleep on some rough floors in India. But like, if you only just have that faith and do it, you have no idea like how green the grass is basically on the other side.
No, exactly. I'm just looking for that Osho.
Yeah, the Osho one would be a beautiful a beautiful way of, and then I've got one more question afterwards, and then I think that'll be a beautiful, like, you know, way of rounding this first discussion up. But yeah, the Osho quote is gorgeous. You found it? Yes.
Yeah. So nothing is secure, because a secure life would be worse than death. Nothing is certain. Life is full of uncertainties, full of surprises. That's its beauty. Life goes on moving with 1,001 uncertainties. That's its freedom. Don't call it insecurity.
Wow. Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. There's a myriad of experiences ready for us to experience, you know. So it's, you know, it's from Essex to India, and Lisa Harris to Shiva Priya. Just a simple question, really. Like, where could you explain the moment when you took on this name, and in India, and how? Because we haven't actually touched on that. It's a really special moment.
Yeah. So so my Guruji, he knew that I had a love of Shiva. Okay, and when I was there, he did like a naming ceremony for me, because I'd said to him, you know, like, I'd like to have a name, like a, you know, a Sanskrit name. And he so he performed a ceremony for me, like a naming ceremony, and he named me Sivopriya, which means dear to Shiva.
Wow.
So so I, in India, then I was called Priya. So that's kind of like the name that I resonate with.
I'm the same with my name. So my name, I was born Aaron Miller, and then I remember the reason I changed my surname to Indigo was I remember just being in love with someone actually at the time, and thinking, if I was to have a child with this person, like, there's no real need for that, my child, to carry on the density of the slave name Miller. It's quite clearly like an industry and a trade that my black side of the family no doubt had to have put on them, and so I changed it to Indigo for the multiple reasons. I was named the Indigo child from like 15 from my family. I've always just kind of been that name's hovered around me, and then now people just call me Indigo. And I remember reading a book by KRS, who's one of the first hip hop artists from America, and he said in one of his books called Rudimentals, it's really important that when you kind of start to know who you truly are within inside yourself, you name yourself something, or you have a name that resonates for yourself, because it's not that you're not Lisa Harris, because Lisa Harris is within you, and Aaron Miller is always within me, and I'm still proud that that's who I am. But that's also the name that your ex-husband, and the name that your mum chose. It's not who you in this incarnation. Yeah, you might resonate with just Lisa Harris, and that might be fine. But when you go on such a deep trip, you're doing dietas, you've got your Guruji and stuff. It truly is. I feel it must be quite a powerful thing to have a name that you chose for yourself, especially having a sacred ceremony. You know, it's like when someone calls me Indigo, I truly feel like they're calling my higher self, not my lower self. And so when I call you Priya, surely, like, it's not that you're not Lisa still to me, but it's like, first of all, it's down respect for who you are. That's the name I now choose to be called by. But I don't know if you do, but when someone calls that, don't you just get like a little something in your stomach, like flickers? It's just something. It's just like, this is actually who I am, and now I must have transcended, or like the transient version of me is gone, and people are recognizing and calling my soul name. And I think this is part of the age of Aquarius and the new age, that we're starting to recognize each other as truly deeper souls, and there's a different vibration and resonance with Lisa Harris and then Shiva.
Yeah, that's it. It's more about, like I say, it's the vibration that the name carries, you know. But I mean, I'm like I say, I'm not going to kind of like have a hissy fit if my mum starts, you know. I'm not expecting my mum.
It's going to be, and it's also it's harder for people like your mum. Someone like your mother, it's going to be harder for, you know, and like close friends and stuff, you know.
And, you know, I don't expect that, and most of my friends still call me Lisa,
of course.
And you know, I'm not going to get all precious about it, you know. It's kind of like, that's cool. But it's like, for the person that's birthing this this new way of being, and
a deeper awareness of
new
who
world,
they are,
and raising consciousness. Yeah, that's the person that I resonate with.
So Priya, that being said, the last thing I would like to ask you is, say someone's watching this, they're also a midwife, or they're in the NHS, or they're in a job that they feel slightly stagnant in, or they're in a partnership where they love the man, but you know, they just no longer, they know in their heart that there's more they need to do, but there's so much fear, there's so much doubt, there's so much worry, they've got so much attachment to materialistic things and safety. Is there anything that you could say? Obviously, to be honest, the whole message we've spoken about has been a testimony to that, but is there anything you would like to say to someone who sees themselves in you? Because this is the power of someone like you, and I'd like to think someone like myself. We are not trying to transcend being human. We're very much still ordinary people, and the most powerful way to inspire people is to be relatable to them. You know, you're not walking around with bangles on down Essex right now, like clapping every second, because no one's going to relate to you like that. I'm not going to walk around with my head wrapped up in like a hijab or like a sari or something 24/7. We might do these things in our own private life, but the most powerful thing is for me to be Aaron Indigo, and for you to be Sivopriya right here, right now, as an English woman, as a mixed race man, and not trying to be some ethereal walking deity prophet that's still up there in the mountain and unattainable. So yeah, is there anything you would like to share before we close this off to just anyone that sees themselves in you but just needs a bit of a nudge?
Yeah, I think I don't know, that's a tricky one, because you know, I can't say, like, say if those fears that people have are real, you know, like if they have those real fears, but it's about finding the courage to push through it, really, and to liberate themselves and try and like tune into their heart, really.
Wow.
Like allow their heart to guide them, you know.
Yeah.
Like allow the higher self to be like to do the navigation, you know.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I'd say, you know, there's a number of books I could recommend. I don't know, have you read Conversations with God?
It's funny you say that. Conversations with God is the very reason my spiritual journey started. And I have an uncle, and he was just doing the rounds in the pubs trying to get people to sit in a circle and read it. Neil Donald Walsh, man. And I remember thinking, I remember when I first read it, and I was really young when I first read it, and my mum got me the children's teenage book, and I said, no, I want to read the blue one that you've got. And at first it was this old white guy that looked like Santa talking about, my hand just started writing on a post-it note. And I remember thinking, like, this is some madness. But I couldn't deny every single word, though, was just stirring something in me, and making me go, Jesus, like, and you know, I need to reread that. It's honestly been like almost 20 years. No, I was about 11, I think, or some shit.
Yeah.
It was deep book.
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. Another one that I'm reading, another Osho book, is Joy. That's quite a good one as well.
Okay, incredible.
Yeah, it's look, everyone is on their own journey, and I would say wherever you are right now is where you're meant to be. Yeah, like even if you're in that kind of like job that you know that feels unsatisfying or whatever, and you do decide to leave, don't beat yourself up for not leaving sooner. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you've done it now.
Yeah.
And it's like wherever you are is perfect.
Wow.
Just remember that. It's like but yeah, have like, life is too short to stay in that unfulfilling job or that unfulfilling relationship. You know,
it really is.
It's like, it really is. And
when you have the courage to actually
it's about trust as well. It's just trusting, it's listening to that little voice, you know, the little voice that keeps tapping on the shoulder saying, come on, it's time.
With that being said, it's like
because yeah, like when you take that first step, it's almost like, yeah, like all of your spirit guides, angels,
whatever, they rush towards you so fast.
Be there. Yeah. Just imagine that you are walking with all of your ancestors behind you, because you pretty much are, even though we can't see them. Like we are like at the top of this pyramid. You think about how many ancestors we have below us, and we are here at this moment in time.
Yeah.
How phenomenal is that, you know?
Well, they say we carry at least just in our DNA up to 7 ancestors just in our DNA alone, let alone the spiritual ones that we're all holding, you know. Just to add to what you're saying, I wanted to just pull this photo off, and I went on tour last year with Marcus Garvey's actual son, his second son. His name was Dr. Julius Garvey. It's a photo I took of him outside the flats in Brixton, 89 years old, and he was continuing his father's legacy and message. If anyone doesn't know, Marcus Garvey is no doubt the most prolific and underrated but famous black person of the 20th century, in my opinion. He created something called the Black Star Line. Anyway, Dr. Julius Garvey's message was everything you've just said. We have to discern our own voice and make sure it is actually our own voice, and listen to that voice and have the courage to follow it. And the thing is, though, sometimes it might not even be your voice. It might be your ancestors' voice. It might be your culture's voice, your sexuality, your race, your gender's voice. It might be what your local friends. It might be the collective karma of your friend's voice. It might be what the TV or Boris Johnson or Matt Hancock's voice. It might not, but it might be your parents' voice and the conditioning of what your parents have put onto you. And the mission for us is to kind of unclog all of that and then be like, okay, what is Indigo's voice? Just my raw voice. And if I follow that bliss, if I follow that voice, everything will open up. I'll have the, I'll have your experience, Priya. I'll be wherever I am. And this is the thing, financial flow, it doesn't have to be financial. Like it could be you'll be like, it could be you're just someone gives you the lift to some random house, and then you've got food and clothing and a roof. We have to unattach from the idea that security means having money. Like if you truly believe in real security, then I will always have whatever I need, whatever. So that is what the true abundance is. Our born right to abundancy is that flow. It isn't I need to have this money.
For me, abundance is like freedom.
Yeah.
It's like having the freedom to travel, having the freedom to be wherever I want to be, having the freedom and the time to paint and be creative.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you can't put a price on that. That's what I'm saying. You couldn't pay me enough money to take that away from me. And when you are living in your truth and you're living in your true authenticity, then you are fully supported. You are fully supported 100%.
Yeah. And if you don't believe that, just go on YouTube and just listen to any interview for someone who's on death row, or someone who's got a life sentence in prison, or someone who's like done 25 years. The first thing them people do, they don't go and like suddenly like try and accumulate money. They go barefoot on the grass because they've been living in a concrete block for like the last 25 years. And they would be happy just having nothing in the jungle, because they have their freedom. So we all know it. But it's very easy to kind of, I think, do you know what the biggest danger is? The biggest devil on the planet is being comfortable. Just having that comfortable little bubble around you, which stops you though from actually revealing who you truly are.
Yeah, that's it. It becomes your imprisonment.
It becomes your imprisonment, man.
It totally is. Yeah. So.
I love you unconditionally, and just thank you for being here. And
thank you.
And I hope so many people hear this message, and I hope you get to talk. And also, like, if this is only what you've done in like the last 2 years, our next convo in like 5 years is going to be insane.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot more. I mean, it's a lot more I can pack in actually.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, we've only skimmed the surface.
I have skimmed the surface, literally. But anyway.
Priya, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo.
What's your names?
My name is Palu.
Palu.
My name is Kalu.
Kalu.
नाम का है तुम्हारा? इनका नाम बोल देती क्या? नाम का है तुम्हारा? नाम का?
नाम है सुनीता.
सुनीता.
Flowers.
हमारा नाम सुनीता. Hello, my name is Palu. My name is Kalu.
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 आपको अच्छा लगता है.
My name is Palu. This name is Mika.
Mika. Mika.